I don't really care for football. As a Euro, it was obviously inescapable growing up, so it's not like I have zero fondness for it. I mean, when you're a kid, it's great to fall asleep to. The chanting chorus that the crowds do turns into an almost beach-like white noise at times. It's really the ASMR of its day. But I'm not much of a sports person, really. I have zero competitive mentality, not exactly keen on running, and the general bro-dude energy of your average sport fan ain't really my vibe. Oh, I'd be lying if I said that gamers were much better, to be honest, but it is what it is. What also is anime. Not huge on that either. There's some stuff that has my interest. Tokyo Babylon, Fist of the Noken, this Gold Mech anime made by a dude who's also a fashion designer, which owns. But I ain't on some weep shit, and I have a hard time concentrating on viewing anything that isn't a YouTube video. So I say all this, not to dunk on anything at all, but simply to state that the fact that Captain Tsubasa Rise of New Champion appealed to me might seem a bit left field. However, here be the tea. As I've mentioned several times, I have a thing for RPGs that replace combat with something else. Mario Tennis Power Tour and its cute little story mode, Racing Lagoon and its stylish story-driven street races, the Haruka chapters in Yakuza 5 or the otherwise goofing off of the other games, Final Fantasy VII's Wall Market segment, Tulip where you kiss, and Moon where you help the monster. And so with that, I wondered, could Cap Tsubasa be the coveted Foot PG? So I was gonna check some normie-ass football games to get some type of reference for comparison, because as Euro as I be, I've never actually owned a FIFA game. I've only had brief second-hand experience with those growing up in chavvy bedrooms that wouldn't mind, so I played Mega Man Soccer. It's pretty good, I think. The controls are a bit stiff, but I definitely feel like I learned a lot about football, though, so that's cool. There's also many other Captain Tsubasa games. As I alluded to, it's based off of a manga and anime license and has games spanning all the way back to the NES. Notable is the Sega CD version, which got translated into Arabic, despite the Sega CD not even releasing in most Arabic-speaking countries, though the anime sure as shit did, which got popular, and that's really cool. There's also a PS1 game by Konami with those bottom text banners stating that it is a simulation game, thus effectively putting it in the same genre category as Tokimeki Memorial and Breeding Stud. But this one is made by Tamsoft. They make booby games, and titty games, and budget games, and also at least one JRPG called Guardian's Crusade or Knight and Baby, depending on where you live. So, I suppose if anyone was to make a Captain Tsubasa RPG, it might as well be them, right? They got the cheap, they got the co-dev, the handheld Neptunia games too, they got the made-up bowling game, which is kind of like football. Though, legit, this is a bowling game with a quest mode, so it's basically already halfway there. Cause yeah, that's essentially what Tsubasa is too. A soccer game with a story mode. You might say, that's not a JRPG though, that's basically a fighting game story mode, and yeah, but also no. Thing is that in Japan, the definition of RPG is a smidge different, as it pertains to games that let you play a role. Shenmue, Mega Man Legends, Sonic Adventure 1, tons of visual novels, seeing as the genres both grew from a similar soil. The Yakuza series, even pre-turn-based combat, were all games marketed or developed as RPG games. They don't necessarily have to have hella stats, though they usually do, but it's really just about immersing yourself in a world as a character. Hence why Sonic Adventure was considered the Sonic RPG during its development, as, well, with the whole town and shit, that's what you do. And in this game, you immerse yourself in the life of a boy called Tsubasa, trying to become the greatest ballinest baller this side of the World Cup, ending up in all manner of cute little situations and hijinks with a colorful cast of friends. You got team management, aka your party, with the levels and statistics. You travel all about the place, sometimes there's dialogue options, and of course, there's one hell of a battle system with crazy cutscene-like moves and animations up the ass. It's a JRPG, shut up. Comparing it to fighting game story modes, though, ain't really fair, as those tend to be pretty bare-bones cutscene compilations for the most part, and this is certainly some whole-ass shit. Similar to its twin-genre games from its Japan-based PC origins, its story is very much presented in a style that I'ma dub VN Extra. Games like Flower, Sun and Rain, DBZ Kakarot, The Personies, other examples. It has big, bold, bordery text box pensions with the auto-forwards and shit, but it's not just portraits or static images, as there's proper camera movement and positions and cleverly selective animations and voice acting, and I'll give it a cinematic veneer without ever having to go full high budget on them too much. Which resulted in, at one point, the game giving up on being a game and proudly showing a solid 70 minutes of continuous cutscenes. Not one whole cutscene, there's loadings, 2 dialogue options, and 1 menu at the 50-minute mark. But still, goddamn. If anything should show you that this game is not fucking about, it should be that, as they are more or less the vehicle that carries these balls and boys. There ain't any exploration or downtime walkie bits. The 3 modes are either cutscenes, menu, or football. Sometimes more one than the neither, but I'd be lying if I said that the latter wasn't pretty fucking solid either. You can run fast, run slow, pass, big kick, little kick, and generally just sort of survive at the whims of where the AI be and what the AI do in regards to where the balls, the camera, and who you get to done gone be go. It's basically FIFA, only without the lame and dumpy confines of reality. Here, you get charge shots, and you go straight up Super Saiyan on motherfuckers and wholesale blast people asunder. No yellow or red cards required. And at the core of it all sits a type of stamina bar called Spirit. Each player has their own bar, and it's used for running fast, doing passes, taking shots, tackles, just anything really, and charges over time or when you do super well, like timing dodges correctly. And if you do super well, you can enter the V-Zone, thus making everyone charge quicker. In essence, it's a bit like a stamina gauge in Souls games, a limit bar in Final Fantasy VII, or an ATB in every JRPG, all in one. Actua is the Virtua we have at home. Game looks pretty great in play too. Very nice model. It's one of those games that seems relatively simple and controls quite intuitively, but also has a shit ton going on by way of hidden mini mechanics and background processes. Take the AI, for instance. It's pretty good. It'll do a decent job of cock blocking and ball flicking, tug-of-war footsie fencing style, aka the things that you do when you and the other person end up trying to go around each other in the same way, like, sorry. That's pretty much what football is, only you're doing it on purpose and more like, hey, get the fuck out of my way! It's very on-the-spot tactical thinking. Not so much worrying about what your inputs are, but when your inputs are. Which ain't easy when paired with the prior mentioned bar. You really need to learn how to be a bit conservative while on the defense, and really only play super aggressively when you start seeing openings. No point in dashing and shooting like a mad asshole when you're on your half after all. Just pass a lot, don't be too focused on always getting the ball close to the goal, and know who to take shots with and from how far. I mean, that bar does go both ways, and so it is possible to whittle away at your opponent's overall spirit and start breaking them easier, making tackles and breaking through the goalie more of a likely thing to have happen. What's great and good about this too is how long the proper big dick kick shots tend to charge. Like, getting the ball near the net is one thing, but watching that bar charge as you see at least 3 dudes running at you and the goalie adjusting to where you are is oh, that's some proper fucking clench every goddamn time. Playing this feels like what those yelling, fist-bumping football pup dads think that they're experiencing. It's really good. Additionally, there's just a lot of different ways to take said shots, like how you can launch cool cutscene kicks from a dodge, or charge kicks while dodging, or set up vantage full high passes that chain together into huge, big, epic moves. It's all stuff that you don't necessarily need to know, seeing as you can do a lot of it on accident, but when you do start knowing the know, which is wholly possible due to the excellent tutorials, you could really start getting in there and get technical with it. And technical is also what one can get with the RPG stats, with each player having 5 categories that upgrade depending on how you use them. Like, say, if you tackle or dodge a lot with one guy, he'll get better defense and speed, and if you shoot for goals more, you'll get more offense, power, or technique. These stats then also contribute to how fast the relative bars will be on a given boy, i.e. how quick they can run or how fast they can pass and so on. And there's also a whole fucking social link system and like equipable items that grant goodies and new moves and shot types that can be learned and dished out to whoever. However, while you can totally go full on soccer sim with this shit, you also don't really have to, as points get distributed mostly automatically and moves get equipped and learned as the story goes. It is, whether as a foot soccer game, a JRPG, or a team manager game, as deep or arcadey as you yourself want it to be. Sadly, what does genuinely sort of suck during play is how, if a ball go fast, camera go fast, and thus who you're playing as also switches fast. On offense, this is mostly okay because you're in control of the ball anyway, but it makes defense quite fucking frustrating at times as A, it simply sucks to be gunning and running towards someone and suddenly get mind-jacked and be heading the opposite way as whoever, wherever, or whatever, or seeing a clear way to get to what you want to do but not being able to do the do in the right literal shoes. And B, the AI doesn't have this handicap, and that can most certainly go on to feel unfair at times. Granted, in either or neither cases, it doesn't not add to the game either or neither, since it is a way to engage the player. Tons of games thrive off of pissing you off to get you invested, and being pissed the fuck off does seem to be a big part of the football experience, so fair, unfair play to tamsoft, I guess. And what's also true here is that it sort of plays into the narrative too, due to both the story and gameplay in this game being married perfectly. Story based on anime. As someone who didn't watch or know shit, can you hang? Yes. The game does just sort of start with its proper setup being an optional bit of anime screenshots, compilations in a menu, but it doesn't feel like a mere abridging of a larger story in the way that most anime games do. Mainly because only a small chunk of it is based on the source, with the majority being original material. Still channeling that classic tournament arc anime structure and also those sweet, luscious, creamy tropages nonetheless. Old-ass tropages as well. The Captain Tsubasa license hails from the 80s and thus uses fist clenches, action backgrounds, intensity edges, dramatic voice raises, and whited-out pupils with zero irony, subversiveness, or smugness. It just is what it is, and what it is closed brackets to a T. And its story is much that way too. One moment, you're up against a rowdy rough-and-tumble kid with a heart of gold, their no-nonsense coach, and the greatest keeper alive, who only win their match because of their opponent guy getting a heart attack, which then causes the rough tumbler to go soul-searching, abandoning his team and setting up all manner of drama across the entire tournament, climaxing in the finals, so that by the time you're up against them, you know what they're about. And the next, you get shat on by the Americans, who are big, loud, dumb, cocky, and assholes, which then forces the gang to reevaluate shit, knowing that these yanks will be there in the final blowbang as well. Now, to be fair, shit like this is absolutely minor and, as I hinted at, pretty box standard stuff on the face of it, but much like how I said that was the case for Mario Tennis and its simple story in my last video, it adds a fair amount of extra stakes and involvement to the coming would-be battles. These ain't random encounter enemies or static sprites or copy-pasted recolors. These are names, characters, voices, personalities, and backstories. And where M.Tennis kept things from really integrating too much, this game goes all in on that shit. For a start, almost all matches are frequently intercut by cutscenes that set down a mood and even changed based on how you play. Like, on my first time during this match, Mr. Big and Homie Smalls was all like, "Huh, yeah, we got this, ain't a challenge shit, huh, I'm bored," because I was playing like a dumbass and losing. However, on my second go-around with me fucking their shit up, Bigums and Wiggums was all like, "This is just what I was waiting for. Finally a challenge. I've never felt so alive. And then here, during this match, while the Tsubasa dislocated arm subplot was a thing, he was fine on my first try due to not having done any big shots as him, but on my next try, he collapsed after I did. Stuff like this is really neat, and given that it's all voiced and written, quite high effort too, and not at all what I expected given how low I'd figure the budget to be, and knowing what tamsoft is usually like. Yeah. Captain Tsubasa Rise of Champion isn't not like you're not watching a little in-engine anime where you get to play the epic climaxes, as that's quite literally what the game is when you get right down to it. Each chapter, there's a beefy amount of cutscenes with maybe some smaller scrimmages in between and a big well-set-up climax match that, due to the gameplay not pulling any punches and also being good actually, already works well on the face of just that alone, but as previously shown, there's whole running subplots and themes and things that change and react based on how you play, involving lasting injuries and rivalries and backstories, and so, come time the game breaks away from its source and ships the gang off to America, all the JP rivals that you now know very well become teammates, and the German dudes built up across the whole ass game, and the various mystery peoples in the crowds, and the long-lost brother lost abroad, and all kinds of funky fun cool shit begin to take hold during, around, and in between the hardest nails but fun as fuck matches. It's never hardcore emotional or nothing, but it sure as shit works to drag you into the combat, to turn you into the at the screen yelling football dad that you are perhaps always meant to be deep inside. And it's exactly stuff like that why I keep seeking out these types of games, cause like Final Fantasy VII, for example, builds up Sephiroth throughout the whole damn game, so that by the time that you get to face off against him proper, it is the hypest fucking shit ever. But if you take a game with a structure like Tsubasa and make the encounters only the ones that matter, having them all have plot weight that echoes throughout the game mechanically and in how its RPG systems build up and develop, you can have every face-off be potentially just as good as a final boss Sephiroth fight would be. Not just goblins or slimes, but shit that matters. As cute as those slimes are, blue lives don't matter. But people lives do, and if you can make your opponents people convincingly enough, you can get encounters that matters too. And that's a fuck of a whole lot easier to accomplish when those encounters aren't fighting, as, well fuck you, it just is. And Captain Tsubasa does that pretty gosh dang well. Everything I've mentioned aside, it even has cheeky things like Tsubasa trying to jack shot from a certain type of position, which then, when you try that during play, suddenly becomes a big plot thing, blending together perfectly with the general clenched pog moment releases that firing a successful shot is to begin with. It is a serviceable to good anime rundown plotline, boosted and emboldened by genuinely really great soccer socking, amounting to a dang tamsoft. Good job. Like, I can't even make fun of the crowds. Those are supposed to look like shit in sport games. The fuck? Who gave them the money to make something that actually looks quite nice, all things considered? And by all things and considered, I mean considering the PS2 game, which looks fucking incredible and has tons of nutty effects and has like the greatest goal graphics in the whole goddamn world.
We get it?
Though even the music in Rise of Champion, while not exactly outside of the game music, does such a great job of accompanying the action with how it dynamically shifts during the matches, paired with well-placed crowd chants that rev up, it for sure makes for pog moments even without the epic golden goals of Tsubasa's past. It also has this really cool directing choice, where often cutscenes will start with the typical cheapo Japanese 3D models VN-type view with your characters on either side, but then after like one or two text boxes, the camera view will change and show that they were just standing that way in a 3D space, which is super cute. And I don't think I've ever seen a game pull that off before either. Sadly, Rise of Champion is sorta inherently repetitive, being that it is just cutscenes and football with no downtime, but it sits pretty comfortably in that really strong 7 out of 10 type game category, together with titles like Dragon Ball Z Kakarot or Disaster Report 4. Does some cool stuff, ain't much else like it, has some heart, and while not exactly jank, is a tad hampered by its budget, but who cares? Sure, it could have had some exploration bits, or maybe more than like 5 songs, but when it all comes together, it shows that they absolutely did the most with what they had. And that, I think, is pretty fucking cool.